Since 2000, Australia's population has grown by almost 5 million people. That's just over 24 million people that now call Australia home. Of these 24 million, around 90% live in urban areas. We only need to look at the skyline of any major Australian city to see that more than ever that we're building upwards. But there's another, less visible story. More than ever, we are also building out. Our cities are growing wider each year, and with the expansion of these growth corridors comes a host of social issues. In Melbourne's outer edges, average wages are 12% lower, while only 11% of residents have a university degree, compared with 24% in inner Melbourne. There are 11 hospital beds per 10,000 residents, contrasted to 30 beds per 10,000 in inner Melbourne. Only 1.5% of residents commute by public transport, compared with over 12% for metropolitan areas. Mernda, a suburb 30 kilometres north of the Melbourne CBD, exemplifies the problems faced by growth corridors. Today, it and neighbouring Doreen are home to some 20,000 people. By 2026, this number is expected to rise to 55,000 people. The community looks neat and attractive, but this disguises the issues faced by residents here. Mernda has limited infrastructure, such as public transport, roads, schools, hospitals, childcare and social activities. The Brotherhood of St Lawrence's Patrick O'Neill explains that the absence of these types of services can have a profound impact on the community building efforts in a place like Mernda.
There are a lot of challenges, particularly around social isolation with these growing new communities. Access to basic infrastructure that probably most of us take for granted, like buses and trains and trams and schools and hospitals, are much more limited. And I think increasingly over time, the access to mainstream employment, mainstream social opportunities is really becoming much more restricted for people living in the growth corridors. Look, I think these communities are very vulnerable. They're very vulnerable to mortgage and rental stress. The levels of both of those things out here are higher than the sort of suburban average. Issues, family violence rates are higher here than in many other municipalities. Issues like problem gambling, mainly through sort of gaming machines, are quite high.
The Brotherhood of St Lawrence tries to do what it can to help relieve some of these burdens by building partnerships with the local community. One such enterprise is the Jindy Family and Community Centre, built by the City of Whittlesea and run by the Brotherhood. The kindergarten runs from 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. to accommodate the 3-hour round commute to the city many parents must do each day, but also provides a number of services to the community at large as well. The Jindy Centre's Emma Antoinette explains that community consultation was key to shaping the mission of the centre.
We spoke to about 80 people in the local community before we came here, and I also spoke to another 80 people just as we opened the doors, really about what they wanted as being part of this community. When they moved here, what is it? What were your hopes? What were your aspirations? And people really said, you know what, I want my children to have lifelong friends. I want to know who my neighbour is. I want to know if somebody's sick down the road, I want to know that, and I want to be able to help that person. So it's really just that sense of community that people are really craving. So we do all sorts of things. We do family events, we do community playgroups, computer classes, English conversation classes, and we also have a community advisory group, so we talk to the people in the community about what it is that they want to see happen here. So we try to be as responsive as we can, because we know there isn't really very much out here for people.
And there's certainly a hunger for such activities. Patrick says the Brotherhood of St Lawrence has been surprised by the interest in the programs it's run.
We run a bus from time to time that takes mums and their kids down to the Mill Park Library, which is the closest library, and again we sort of came up with a minibus thinking we might get half a dozen people, and suddenly 30 people descended on the bus, and it just showed there's a hunger, and if you build it they will come.
Plenty Life Church's Craig Ogden, an Anglican priest who's been a part of the community for 6 years, says the rapid changes that have occurred here has meant the church has been focused on responding to the needs of the area.
We've been able to see the impact of those stresses and strains, particularly on families, where we see families that are struggling to make ends meet on a regular basis, where they've bought into a new area, where they've been mortgaged to the hilt but don't have so much disposable income, even for the basic necessities of putting food on the table. So as a church, we've been endeavouring to be responsive to that. One of our community groups, we're a network church of missional communities. One of those community groups seeks to help families in need around food insecurity and bring food to them, meals to them, whenever the need arises. Other community groups that we have, or missional communities, will provide opportunities for social engagement and interaction to offset the great need there is, or the issue rather there is around social isolation.
The church is doing a great job working in unseen ways in the local community, but it takes a long time to win people's trust. What people in Mernda and similar suburbs need is an election focus that puts people and their flourishing first. And this flourishing can't just be measured by economic measures, important as they are. The 4 priorities that Anglican Australia has rated highest in the forthcoming election are these: affordable and secure housing, secure work, adequate income, and tax reform that enables these. It's just not good enough that there are people who are in full-time employment who can't afford to put a meal on their table at night. We can't afford to separate social issues from economic issues. Proper housing and a secure job are the foundation of a decent quality of life. And this is what Australians, old and new, want and deserve.